What if your phone is secretly reprogramming your brain while you think you're just scrolling for fun? This is going to blow your mind. 94% of teens now doomscroll unconsciously, data hidden from public. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself a truly uncomfortable question? Not about your job or your relationships, but about the device you hold in your hand for hours every single day. What if that phone, your window to the world, isn't just a neutral tool? What if it's actively, silently, and systematically reprogramming your brain without your consent? This isn't a plot from a science fiction movie. This is a reality unfolding in the quiet moments we spend staring at our screens. We think we are in control, choosing what to watch, what to read, and who to connect with. But the truth is far more complex, and frankly, far more concerning than we are led to believe. The numbers don't lie, and they paint a picture that should concern every single one of us. 9 out of 10 young people are willingly, or perhaps unwillingly, immersing themselves in a digital river of fear, anxiety, and despair. This isn't a passive activity, it's an active process of conditioning. It is teaching an entire generation that the world is a place of constant crisis, training their brains to anticipate the next disaster, the next tragedy, the next reason to feel hopeless. We need to wake up to what's happening right under our noses. This habit, this addiction, is setting a dangerous precedent for how we interact with information, and more importantly, with our own inner peace. The constant exposure to negativity creates a state of perpetual alert, a low-grade but chronic stress that seeps into every corner of our lives. It's a subtle tension we might not even notice until it manifests as a sudden outburst of anger, a sleepless night, or a feeling of overwhelming dread that we can't quite explain. We dismiss it as just a bad day, but what if it's the cumulative effect of thousands of bad headlines, all consumed through a glowing rectangle that we treat as an extension of ourselves? The silent reprogramming is happening now. It's happening every time you unlock your phone with the intention of checking one message, but find yourself still scrolling an hour later. It's happening when you feel a phantom vibration in your pocket, a ghost of a notification that your brain has been trained to crave. The architecture of these digital platforms is not designed for your well-being. It's designed for your engagement, and it achieves that by hijacking the most primitive parts of your brain, the part that's hardwired to look for threats. Today, we begin to understand this process not to spread fear, but to reclaim our power. We must understand the mechanism before we can dismantle it. We reach for our phones with the promise of connection. We want to see what our friends are doing, share a moment from our day, or feel like we're part of a larger global conversation. The platforms we use are marketed to us as tools for community, for bringing people together across vast distances. They offer us a seemingly endless gallery of smiling faces, beautiful vacations, and celebratory life events. We scroll through these images and updates, believing we are participating in the lives of others, strengthening our bonds through likes, comments, and shares. It feels like we are more connected than any generation in history. But what is the quality of this connection? Is a double tap on a photo the same as a heartfelt conversation over a cup of tea? Is a comment left on a post equivalent to offering a shoulder to cry on? We are trading deep, meaningful interaction for shallow, fleeting engagement. The more time we spend curating our digital selves and consuming the curated lives of others, the more we can feel a profound sense of loneliness. This is the great paradox of our time. We are surrounded by digital friends, yet feel increasingly isolated. We are performing connection rather than experiencing it, and our spirit knows the difference. This digital illusion fosters a culture of comparison that is toxic to our mental health. We are constantly measuring our own messy, complicated, behind-the-scenes reality against the perfectly edited highlight reels of everyone else. This endless comparison is a recipe for anxiety, inadequacy, and envy. We start to believe that our life is not as exciting, our accomplishments are not as significant, and our happiness is not as complete as what we see on our screens. This isn't an accident. It's a feature of the system. Engagement is driven by emotion, and emotions like envy and desire are powerful motivators to keep scrolling, keep watching, and keep comparing. The result is a slow erosion of our self-worth and a growing distance from the people who are physically around us. We sit at dinner tables with our families, our attention stolen by notifications from people miles away. We neglect the real, present-moment opportunities for connection in favor of the digital mirage. This isn't just a bad habit. It's a fundamental shift in how we relate to one another. We are sacrificing the richness of authentic human presence for the empty calories of digital validation. The first step in reclaiming our minds is to recognize that the connection our phones offer is often just a beautifully crafted illusion. Before the age of smartphones, our ability to focus was a muscle we exercised daily. We would read books for hours, engage in long conversations without interruption, or lose ourselves in a hobby, completely absorbed in the task at hand. This state of deep focus, often called a flow state, is essential for learning, creativity, and a sense of accomplishment. Today, that muscle has atrophied. Our phones have trained us to exist in a state of continuous partial attention, constantly flitting from one notification to the next, one app to another, one thought to the next. Our brains are being rewired for distraction. Research from institutions like the University of California, Irvine, has shown that it can take over 23 minutes to regain deep focus after just one single interruption. Now, consider how many times your phone buzzes, pings, or lights up in an hour. Each notification is a tiny tear in the fabric of your concentration. Over the course of a day, these small interruptions add up to a state of perpetual mental fragmentation. We feel busy, we feel stimulated, but we are not productive. We are merely reacting, bouncing from one digital stimulus to the next, never allowing our minds to settle and engage with anything deeply. This constant switching of context comes at a high cognitive cost. It fatigues the brain and has been directly linked to increased anxiety and even memory loss. When your mind is always jumping between tasks, it struggles to encode information into long-term memory. You might find yourself forgetting simple things, like what you just read in an article, or what a friend told you in a conversation minutes ago. This isn't a sign of aging, it's a symptom of cognitive overload. Your brain's working memory is like a small table, and the endless stream of information from your phone is piling it so high that things inevitably start to fall off. The anxiety we feel is also a direct consequence of this shattered focus. A mind that cannot rest is a mind that is stressed. We feel a constant, low-level hum of pressure, a feeling that we are always behind, always missing something important. This is the fear of missing out, a powerful psychological driver that keeps us glued to our feeds. We are afraid that if we disconnect, we will be left out of the loop. But this fear is a trap. The more we check, the more we fragment our attention, the more anxious we become, and the more we feel the need to check again. It is a vicious cycle, designed to keep us hooked. Thousands of years before the first smartphone was ever conceived, the Buddha offered profound insights into the nature of the human mind. He taught that much of our suffering comes from a mind that is untamed, restless, and constantly grasping for external stimulation. He likened the untrained mind to a drunken monkey, bitten by a scorpion, jumping chaotically from one thought to the next, driven by desire and aversion. Does this ancient description not sound remarkably similar to the mental state induced by scrolling through a social media feed? We leap from a friend's vacation photo, which is all about desire, to a tragic news story, which triggers aversion in a matter of seconds. The Buddha's core teaching revolves around the concept of mindfulness, which is the practice of paying attention to the present moment on purpose and non-judgmentally. It is the exact opposite of the mindless scrolling that has become our default state. When we doom scroll, we are not in the present. We are lost in a digital realm of past grievances and future anxieties. We are not paying attention on purpose. Our attention is being hijacked by algorithms designed to provoke a reaction. We are not being non-judgmental. We are constantly comparing, criticizing, and reacting with powerful emotions. One of the key principles of Buddhist philosophy is understanding the cause of suffering, known as dukkha. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving and attachment. We crave pleasant experiences and are attached to avoiding unpleasant ones. Our phones have become the ultimate delivery system for this cycle of craving. We crave the dopamine hit of a new notification, a like, or a positive comment. We develop an attachment to our digital identity. Doomscrolling is the other side of that same coin, a compulsive attachment to consuming negative information, driven by a deep-seated, primitive need to be aware of potential threats. By engaging in this behavior unconsciously, we are strengthening the very mental habits that the Buddha identified as the root of our unhappiness. We are training our minds to be more reactive, more scattered, and more dependent on external validation and stimulation. We are creating our own suffering, one scroll at a time. The ancient wisdom of the Buddha is not just a spiritual philosophy, it is a practical manual for the mind. It provides a timeless warning that a life lived on autopilot, driven by unconscious cravings and aversions, is a life of dissatisfaction. Our modern dilemma is simply a high-tech version of this age-old human challenge. So, the brilliant psychoanalyst Carl Jung gave us a powerful concept for understanding the parts of ourselves we refuse to see: the shadow. The shadow is like the unconscious aspect of our personality, the spot where all the thoughts, feelings, and impulses we find unacceptable get shoved away and repressed. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Honestly, this statement is such a perfect lens for looking at our relationship with our phones. Our compulsive digital habits are, for so many of us, a manifestation of our unexamined shadow. When we mindlessly scroll, we're not making a conscious choice. Nope, we're being directed by unconscious needs. Maybe it's a need to escape boredom, to numb feelings of loneliness, or just to distract ourselves from tough thoughts or emotions. Instead of sitting with that discomfort and trying to understand where it's coming from, we just reach for the phone. It kind of becomes our digital pacifier, you know? A tool to push the shadow back into the darkness. But, as Jung warned, what we do not confront consciously will control us from below the surface. Our phone addiction isn't fate. It's more like a symptom of an inner world we're avoiding. The endless feed of social media and news also acts as, like, this giant projection screen for our collective shadow. The outrage, the judgment, the envy, and the fear that run wild online, they're often just projections of our own inner turmoil. It's way easier to get angry about a political scandal or to judge someone's lifestyle choices than it is to actually confront our own anger or insecurities. The digital world lets us displace our shadow onto others, so we end up in this kind of pseudo-moral combat that gives us a temporary feeling of righteousness, while totally letting us avoid the hard work of self-reflection. Making the unconscious conscious, especially here, means asking ourselves, we're picking up the phone. What feeling am I trying to avoid? What void am I trying to fill? It really requires us to turn our attention inward, away from the screen, and face the shadow we've been so desperate to ignore. It's only by bringing this unconscious behavior into the light of awareness that we can start to reclaim our autonomy. Because until we do, the algorithm, which is totally designed to prey on our shadow impulses, will keep directing our lives, and we'll keep calling it just scrolling. For a long time, we have spoken about the psychological effects of our phone habits. We have used metaphors and philosophical concepts to describe the unease and anxiety that come with being too connected. But now, modern science is catching up, providing us with a clear biological picture of what is happening inside our skulls when we engage in this behavior. Neuroscientists are using advanced imaging technology, like fMRI scans, to look directly into the brain as it doomscrolls, and what they are finding is both fascinating and deeply alarming. It confirms that this is not just a bad habit, it's a process with real, measurable neurological consequences. These studies are revealing which parts of the brain are activated by this endless consumption of negative information. When we scroll through distressing headlines, graphic images, and fearful commentary, our brain doesn't neatly categorize it as just information. Instead, it triggers a cascade of neurological events. The amygdala, the brain's ancient fear and threat detection center, lights up like a fire alarm. This is the same part of the brain that is activated when we face a real physical threat, like a predator in the wild. Our bodies are being flooded with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Simultaneously, this constant state of high alert puts a tremendous strain on our prefrontal cortex. This is the more evolved part of our brain, responsible for rational thought, impulse control, and long-term planning. When the amygdala is in overdrive, it effectively hijacks our cognitive resources, weakening the influence of the prefrontal cortex. This is why it feels so hard to stop scrolling once you've started. Your brain's fear center is screaming danger, while the part of your brain that would normally say, "This is not productive, let's do something else," is being suppressed. You are literally in a neurologically compromised state. This new scientific evidence is crucial because it moves the conversation from the realm of opinion to the realm of fact. We can no longer dismiss doom scrolling as a harmless distraction or a simple waste of time. We now have visual proof that it activates the brain's threat response system and impairs our capacity for higher level thinking. We are voluntarily putting our brains into a state of fight or flight, not for a few minutes to escape a real danger, but for hours on end, day after day. Understanding this neurological reality is the first step toward appreciating the true cost of our digital habits. The connection between doom scrolling and the brain's fear center is alarming enough, but some of the latest research has uncovered an even more disturbing link. A groundbreaking neuro study has shown that the specific patterns of brain activity observed during prolonged doom scrolling bear a striking resemblance to the patterns seen in individuals suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Let that sink in. The act of compulsively consuming negative news online activates the same neural pathways that are hyperactive in people who have experienced severe trauma. We are, in essence, simulating the neurological signature of trauma within our own minds. This doesn't mean that scrolling your phone is the same as experiencing a life-threatening event. However, it does mean that we are conditioning our brains to exist in a state of hypervigilance, just like a trauma survivor. With PTSD, the brain gets stuck in a loop, constantly scanning the environment for threats, unable to return to a state of calm and safety. Doom scrolling trains our brain to do the exact same thing. We are teaching our nervous system that the world is an endlessly dangerous place, and that we must remain on high alert at all times, lest we miss the next impending disaster. This state of chronic, self-inflicted hypervigilance explains so many of the symptoms we experience: persistent anxiety, irritability, difficulty sleeping, and a pervasive sense of dread. Our bodies are not designed to be in a constant state of emergency. The continuous flood of stress hormones wears down our physical and mental resilience. It's like revving a car engine in the red zone for hours every day. Sooner or later, the system is going to break down. We are creating a form of second-hand digital trauma that is eroding our well-being from the inside out. Therefore, we must fundamentally reframe how we view this activity. Doom scrolling is not a harmless distraction. It is not a way to stay informed. It is an act of self-harm, a voluntary exposure to stimuli that our brain processes in a similar way to trauma. It weakens our ability to feel safe, to connect with others, and to experience joy and peace. Recognizing this hard truth is not about creating more fear, but about empowering ourselves with the knowledge we need to make a different choice. We have the power to stop inflicting this neurological damage on ourselves. But first, we must admit that the damage is real. Knowing that our phones are reprogramming our brains, shattering our focus, and even mimicking trauma responses can feel overwhelming. It might even make you feel hopeless, as if you are caught in a trap with no escape. But I want to assure you that this is not the case. Awareness is the first and most powerful step toward change. The moment you become conscious of an unconscious pattern, you rob it of its power. You are no longer a puppet being controlled by hidden strings. You are an observer who can now choose to act differently. This knowledge is not a cage. It is the key that unlocks it. The journey of mind repair begins not with deleting all your apps or throwing your phone away, though for some, a digital detox can be a powerful reset. It begins with a simple, intentional pause. The next time you feel that reflexive urge to pick up your phone and start scrolling, just stop for 5 seconds. In that pause, ask yourself a simple question. What am I really looking for right now? Am I bored? Am I lonely? Am I anxious? Am I trying to avoid a task? Don't judge the answer. Simply observe it. This tiny act of mindfulness inserts a wedge of consciousness into the addictive loop. From this place of awareness, you can begin to make small, intentional choices. Instead of opening a social media app, maybe you choose to take 3 deep breaths. Maybe you decide to stand up and stretch. Maybe you look out a window and notice the color of the sky. These are not monumental actions, but they are acts of rebellion against the algorithm. You are choosing to tend to your actual need, the need for calm, the need for a mental break, instead of feeding the digital machine. Each time you do this, you are strengthening your prefrontal cortex and weakening the grip of the reactive amygdala. This is not about perfection. It is about practice. You will forget. You will fall back into old habits. That is okay. The goal is not to win a war against your phone in a single day. The goal is to begin the process of reclaiming your attention, one conscious moment at a time. Think of it as mental physiotherapy. You are retraining a muscle that has weakened over time. It requires patience, compassion for yourself, and consistency. But with every intentional pause, you are taking back a piece of your mind. You are starting the process of repairing your inner world. What we have discussed today is just the beginning. It is the diagnosis of a problem that has quietly become one of the defining challenges of our generation. Understanding the what and the why is essential, but it is not enough. The next step is learning the how. How do we actively repair the damage? How do we build a healthier relationship with technology? How do we cultivate deep focus, inner peace, and authentic connection in a world designed to distract us? This is a journey of what I call inner alchemy, the process of transforming our inner state from one of distraction and anxiety to one of purpose and presence. I want to personally invite you to continue this journey with me. This article is the first in a special 3-part series dedicated entirely to mind repair. In the next part, we will explore practical, science-backed techniques to rewire your brain for focus and calm. We will move beyond the problem and dive deep into the solutions, offering a toolkit of habits and mindsets you can implement immediately. In the final part, we will discuss how to build a life of purpose and deep connection that makes the shallow allure of the digital world pale in comparison. This is a roadmap to reclaiming your most valuable asset, your own mind. But I need to be very direct with you. This kind of information is not what the algorithms want you to see. Content that encourages you to spend less time on your phone, to disconnect from the feed, and to turn your attention inward is a direct threat to the business model of these platforms. It is actively suppressed. They want you to keep scrolling through content that makes you angry, fearful, or envious, because that is what keeps you engaged. Information that empowers you to break free is systematically hidden. The only way to fight this suppression is to consciously choose to follow and engage. This is why your action now is so critical. If you found this information valuable, if it resonated with you, then you must take the next step. By following this channel and turning on notifications, you are telling the algorithm that this content matters. You are ensuring that you will not miss the next 2 crucial parts of this mind repair series. You are joining a community of people who are committed to waking up and reclaiming their lives from the grip of the machine. This is more than just a follow. It's a statement. It's an act of digital defiance and a commitment to your own well-being. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment to Inner Alchemy.